Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Borderline Report. I'm your host, Wynton Borders. A friendly reminder that the Borderline Report is a show for the people, with the people, working to improve their community. A place to discuss a wide range of topics and hear directly from individuals working to create change in communities across the state of Connecticut and beyond. Today, we'll sit down with our dynamic guests and have a discussion about representation in the media, pop culture, and the spaces that we occupy on a daily basis. I look forward to you watching and engaging in the conversation. Let's get started. There's a commonly used phrase, seeing is believing, but others will also say that seeing is being. A picture, a model, a depiction, or a portrayal of someone and the things that make them who they are. Race, gender, religious affiliation, sexual orientation. When people can see these identity traits that represent them reflected in media and popular culture and everyday interactions, it's inspiring. Not only is it inspiring, it can be influential. When people aren't seeing themselves represented through media and everyday interactions, they can feel less connected, feel alienated, and even think that it's impossible to become something that they have never seen. Such feelings even inspired the Twitter hashtag, When I First Saw Me. Using the hashtag, users would tweet about the first time that they saw themselves represented through characters and various peoples in their lives. Oftentimes, without even realizing, lack of representation starts at an early age. Research from the Cooperative Children's Book Center reports that children's books rarely have main characters from diverse backgrounds. In 2015, 73% of lead characters in children's books were white, compared to 3% of books where characters were Asian and 7% where they were African American. Representation matters for not only young people, but all people. Too many places and spaces that we often occupy are underrepresented with diverse backgrounds. Jobs, schools, local government, and law enforcement agencies. Today, we sit down and we further this conversation with an impressive guest, Chris Sumlin. Sumlin has contributed to creating meaningful content that truthfully and positively represents his diverse experience. Sumlin is also the author of 2 published books and a screenwriter. I look forward to him joining this conversation and you guys engaging in it as well. Let's dive in and begin. And welcome back to the Borderline Report. I'm so excited to have this guest with us today here to continue our conversation around representation in the media and pop culture and the themes that we consume every single day. I'd like to introduce right now Chris Sumlin from Columbus, Ohio, 2-time published author and screenwriter. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much, Mr. Wynton, for having me on this show. I'm just so excited to be here and looking forward to the dialogue we're going to have.
Oh no, I'm so excited, and like I told you in privacy, I've admired your work from afar for so long, and I'm excited that I could have you be a part of this show and to kind of teach the viewers today and really have a healthy dialogue around representation and writing and creating things that inspire people and that they can connect to. So, Chris, let's just hop right into it. I know that you're a writer, a screenwriter, but tell us a little bit about your background. How did you start writing, and what is your why for why you write?
Well, I think it all really started with like my education. So I went to Morehouse College, of course, as you know, and I studied, and that's really what kind of inspired me to start writing. I write blogs, I write scripts, I've written 2 books, but it really was being inspired by my colleague's book is written about just a general self-help kind of autobiography that I wrote to inspire my friends to kind of read that type of content. Undergrad work, I knew that I wanted to write an informative book about my college experience. So my first book is just general positive self-help, and then my second book, dealing with this thing called college, is a very broad, good college book about my experience at Morehouse from beginning to end. And it's always just my intention to inspire people, to get them to think, to get them to read, because those are 2 things that I love to do, is think, read, and write. So I'm always trying to inspire my peers to do the same.
And that's amazing. And I know you said you did this in college. So let's stop and talk about your series, this thing called. Why at such a young age, when you could be doing so much at a university, having a lot of fun, especially at Morehouse in Atlanta, why did you say, I want to stop now at this point in my life and start writing and start putting out these books?
Well, I think it's so important that always work hard and never wait for the validation of someone else. So I'm someone that's very impulsive. Like I'll get a creative impulse and then we'll just flow through that. So when I want to try to book, I didn't have this goal or a vision board that said I want to be a writer in 5 years. I was sitting down at home watching television, and the idea for a book came in my head. And where some people may have that idea and then wait, I was like, I'm going to have this idea and I'm going to put forth the action. And so that's kind of like how I start, and that's always my advice to any of the people who want to write or create content is when you have a creative idea or an impulse, act on it. Don't wait on it. Don't wait for the right moment. Don't wait until you're ready. Just get started and create. And I think if you do that, you'll always be successful and be okay.
Those are wise words from a decent man. And so you write books, obviously, and you're constantly writing, but what are you reading? What's kind of inspiring you? What are some things that you read that you connect to and you feel like represents you?
So, what inspires me? Like, what am I reading?
Yeah, like what are some things you're reading, or maybe what's a book that when you read it, it was like, wow, I see myself in this character. Or maybe it's a show that you watch and you say, I see myself in this. That kind of that gets your attention.
Yeah, so I love autobiographical books. I love nonfiction that are really great. I love reading self-help books, but when you read so many of them, a lot of the themes and messages in them kind of all run together. So like if you've read the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, How to Win Friends and Influence People, a lot of the newer age spiritual self-help books are all kind of like kind of emphasizing those same ideologies. So self-help was one of my favorite genres, but now I just love hearing people's stories. Most recently, I read a book called Educated by Tara Westover, which was a New York Times bestseller. And I just love reading books that kind of take me out of my experience, out of my reality, to kind of teach me about someone else's world. And that book was really good. And any book that inspires me and gives me like a new perspective or a new environment, those are kind of books that I like to read.
Nice. And so as a writer, as a content creator, and anything that you may be creating, do you believe that representation matters?
So as a writer, what is some books that have helped me become a better writer? I'm having a hard time hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. And I was just saying, Chris, as a writer, as a content creator, do you believe that representation matters?
I can't hear anything. All I hear is static.
I'm sorry. I said, do you believe that representation matters as a writer, as a content creator?
Absolutely. And that's like what representation is so important no matter what, especially in music and in film and in television and as writing. It's important that people see people that are like them, that inspire them. So when I go to schools and I'm talking to students that are from low income communities, that are people of color, that are young men looking to be inspired, when I come and just show up with my presence and let people know, like, I've come from this situation, but here's what I'm doing. Here's what I aspire to do. Here's what I've done. I think that is just so important and so powerful because models are important. Representation is important. People that you can look to for inspiration, that is very important. And Jay-Z has a line that says, my presence is the present. And I think that's just so important. Like, President Obama just being the president inspires so many young people to get involved in politics. Black women is going to inspire other women to really push their craft. And so I just think no matter what type of line of work that we're doing, just representing and being a part of the conversation is very important, especially for the next generation coming behind us.
And so this leads me to my next question. It might be tough, but when was the first time you seen somebody that represented you, that lets you know I can do X, Y, Z, whatever it may have been?
Sure. I think that I'm inspired by a different variety of people. One of my biggest influences is Donald Glover, because one thing that I love about Donald Glover is that he does not have a label. So, for example, when he's being introduced on television, when he's performing, you can't say television writer Donald Glover because he's also Childish Gambino. He also does music. He also acts. And so he's somebody that I really go up to because he's a multi-hyphenate, and just seeing someone that was okay with kind of being a little bit different, being a little bit weird, being a creative and not holding themselves back in their creative expression. That was somebody that I really am inspired by. That is somebody that I look to for inspiration and really inspires me in all of the work that I do. I love Donald Glover. He's just the GOAT to me.
No, he's honestly one of my favorite too. And just side note, did you get a chance to see his Coachella performance?
One more time?
I said, just side note, did you get an opportunity to check out his Coachella performance?
Did I get an opportunity to check out his
Coachella performance?
His Coachella performance. I did not get a chance to see his Coachella performance. I'm still kind of watching Beyonce's, which is really great. And I watched the Netflix Homecoming film, and I thought it was really great. And I'm just so inspired by Black people that are just reaching new heights artistically. And I just feel like the sky's the limit. I feel like right now we're in a zeitgeist of different creative ideas and different cultures. And so it's just about Black creators and different marginalized groups coming together and taking a part of this moment that we're in. And I'm excited to see what is to come in these next couple of years as we're transitioning into a more diverse atmosphere. It's really exciting.
I love it. And so, if you could give a message right now to other creative minds out there when it comes to representation, what would that message be?
If I could send a message to creatives that were looking to tell an idea or tell or any type of thing, it would be really to follow your bliss and understand that work isn't easy. In the days of Instagram, Insta likes and Insta fame, everybody just thinks everything is beautiful, quick, and successful. And it's really important that those of us that have experienced success paint the picture and let people know that this journey is not easy. It's hard. But if you continue just to persevere and be consistent and persistent, you will always make it. And that's just the message that I want to send out to everybody that I think is really important. And if you just follow that, you'll always be okay.
I love it. And so, Chris, I'm always seeing you be a mover and a shaker. What's next for you? What's to come?
Well, I studied television and film when I was in undergrad. And then when I went to Boston University, I got a master's in television producing. So I've created a television pilot that I'm looking to sell. So I'm actually moving to Los Angeles, hoping to have some meetings with production companies. And I plan to create my own scripted television series. So that is like what's next for me. And then I also will be writing another book. So my first book is dealing with this thing called Life, which is my general self-help book. My second book is dealing with this thing called College. So I have one more book that I really hope to talk about my journey in Hollywood, and that will be called Dealing with This Thing Called Hollywood. So that will finish off the trilogy, and so I plan on to create another book and create a television series, and that's what I have to look forward going into the end of this year and to next year.
And if we want to find you, where can we find you at to keep track with Chris Sumlin?
You can visit my website at www.thechrisumlin.com to learn all about the things that I've done and I'm doing. All of my books are available on Barnes & Noble's website as well as Amazon. And I also have a podcast that I've just recently started that is available on all streaming platforms called The Chris Sumlin Podcast.
Chris, I want to thank you, and I want to let you know that you are an inspiration to all of us, and I'm so happy that you could be a part of the Borderline Report today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm so proud of the work that you're doing, and just best of luck with everything. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you so much, Chris. Have a good one.
You as well.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Chris Sumlin. We'll be right back to the Borderline Report. Before we part ways and conclude this episode of the Borderline Report, as always, I have a challenge for the viewers. The Borderline Report is a place to begin the conversation, but do not let your learning stop here. I challenge you to continue to examine the importance of representation, examine the spaces that you occupy, and challenge the diversity within. Your contribution may not be writing a book like Sumlin, but you can do your part as well. As always, I thank you for your time and thank you for viewing the Borderline Report. I'm your host, Wynton Borders.